The importance of news analysis in the media. So, why should we care about news analysis in the media today? Despite the fact that it may be a requirement for you to graduate to pass this class, we should care because in the United States, 5 companies control 80% of what you see on TV, and 10 companies control 2/3 of what you hear on the radio. But who are they, and what are they selling? Additionally, it is important to understand how media constructs reality, and how to engage and evaluate that information. So what forces are shaping media today? How the media is constructed is directed by the status quo. Often, the mainstream media may be reluctant to challenge those in power, and in some cases, they may actually perpetuate those in power. So, who is that in your society? Here are a few facts about media in society today. According to a 2004 study, viewing at ages 1 and 3 was associated with parental reports of attention deficit disorder symptoms at age 7. In 2002, it was discovered that obesity rates increased with an extra hour of viewing for low-income multi-ethnic preschoolers. However, on a positive note, 3rd and 4th graders who were given media literacy instruction watched less television and played fewer video games, and also reduced their use of verbal and physical aggression as judged by their peers. So, with all these facts, what do we do? How do we detect bias in media? Well, by understanding the media itself in its many forms: film, television, radio, and internet. We need to ask ourselves, who owns it? How is it constructed or structured? And who has access to what? What are our sources for information? And we can do this by using the principles of FAIR, or fairness and accuracy in reporting. We also need to understand the language being used by understanding the market audience. So the big question is, can we, as critical consumers, obtain our facts and information without entertainment? Let's see. First, we need to examine the language. Watch out for leading language and metaphors, and misleading titles. News writers often use metaphors or hyperbolic or extravagant language in a manner that represents a particular attitude toward that event. Leading language and metaphors include hype, hoax, lie, versus human-caused, indisputable evidence, scientific research. Another one of my favorites is some people say. A misleading title could include "Out with a Shiver, Global Warming Protest Frozen Out by Massive Snowfall." Next, we need to examine who has access to what. Who has access to the internet, to newspapers, to television? Many students have said that if they follow the news at all, it's what's on the nightly news that their parents watch, or from what they hear on the Colbert Report or the Daily Show. These are not accurate representations of current events, no matter how funny they may be. When detecting bias, it is good to use the questions from FAIR, no matter where one gets the information. These questions include: who are the sources? Is there a lack of diversity? From whose point of view is this news being reported? Are there double standards here? Do stereotypes skew this coverage? Is this language loaded? Is there a lack of content? And are these stories on the important issues? Next, when attempting to detect bias, what's not getting told? And how accurate and balanced is the coverage? Try watching several TV news programs on the same night, and you will soon discover how they differ in the way that they present their information on any event. The contrast is particularly obvious when comparing a commercial network with a national public network, ABC or PBS. It is also apparent when comparing local and national news coverage of the same event. Here are some focus questions to consider when watching the news. First, notice a network's priority in placement of its news items. What type of stories were given the greatest importance? Determine this by noticing which stories had the longest running times and were in prime position in the running schedule, so like which one came first. And the highest entertainment value, that maybe were used as teasers in promos and at the start. Why were these stories chosen? Consider here the target audience, the type of story, and the quality of footage. Next, compare running times. Record the length of news items dealt with. If there was a difference in running time, what extra information did the longer story contain? Third, consider the choice of visuals. Video footage, camera angles, and editing techniques. Is it trying to force a particular response from the viewer? Perhaps making us sympathize with fleeing refugees or feel national pride over winning a big overseas sporting competition? How is this effect achieved? Does the footage sensationalize an event or emphasize it disproportionately? How? Does it distract the viewer from information? Why has the network chosen this emphasis on entertainment rather than information? 4. Fourth, observe who was interviewed and why. Were both sides of the issue presented? What type of interviewees were chosen to represent each side? Were there actual words recorded? What impression was created of the person when he or she was interviewed? Were they made to look sensible or an extremist? Or stupid? Perhaps a bully? Or a hypocrite? How was this effect created? Are some interviewees chosen because they are rather photogenic or very articulate? For overseas stories, the people who speak English as a second language have often had a superior education and are from more middle-class backgrounds. Would they always make a reliable witness? Why or why not? Why do some commercial networks avoid using subtitles for their interviewees? Next, watch for sensationalism. As Walter Cronkite said, if it bleeds, it leads. So, was there any violence shown? If so, were the most violent parts also shown in the opening teasers? Why? How many times was the same footage played? And were slow motion replays used on sporting incidents? Why do news programs present violence in this way? Finally, be aware of emotional manipulation. Did the news program force the viewer to sympathize with one side? Was the victim of the violence interviewed and the physical damage shown? Was anyone crying? Why would TV news programs so often display these intimate scenes to the world? Please consider these questions and analysis the next time that you turn on your television or open up the paper.